That's something people can look at and latch onto as inspiration and as role models. And I think that with video games and people streaming a lot of stuff, I think we're doing a lot more sitting than we ever have. And a lot of it's the food, the lack of movement, the mindset as well.
Over the past 4 years, I've gone through a physical transformation where I lost 200 pounds. And
Congratulations, man! It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Went from a 64-inch waist down to a 34, and
Wow.
still got some cleanup work to do. But I'm in there every day. Just got finished this morning doing my run. I think Dennis has done a double this morning.
Yeah,
Wow.
bright and early, 5:30, up and at it. I get up.
Wow, that's amazing.
4:30 every morning. Wife and I get up, and we're usually have both of our workouts down back to back, and honestly, the day feels so much better when you get it done.
As an actor, you're not always acting. Even some of the big names have times where you're not always doing something. And I like creating, and I like getting in front of the camera and doing stuff. So pandemic hit, and we had this lockdown going on. So we're all in the house, we had a lockdown, and I needed something to do. I was doing some acting monologues and things like that.
And welcome to the Apex Lifestyles Podcast. I'm your host, Bob GDMD, and I'm here as always with my co-host
Dennis V, what's going on today, Bob?
Well, it's a great Sunday. We're here. We've got an incredible guest. As you can see, he's on screen right now. He's a fitness influencer. He's an actor. He's been in some really great films, and we're going to pick his brain about getting to his apex.
I know this guy. This guy used to play on the hard court years ago, back in Mystic, Connecticut, Groton, Connecticut. Jeremy, welcome. Great to have you. It's just great how life is circling back, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. It's awesome. Excited.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And one of the things we do here, this is the Apex Lifestyles Podcast, right? So we're interviewing people and trying to get an understanding of people who are on their way to their personal apex. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You started off in Mystic, Connecticut, and you know Dennis pretty well. I guess you guys used to play basketball together. And why don't you start from there? And now you live on the West Coast, and we're here on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And we're doing a remote Sunday morning podcast. So why
That's
don't you
awesome.
go ahead?
Yeah, man. So, I grew up in Connecticut. I was born in a really small town in Rhode Island called Quonset Point. There was a little naval base there. I was born there, but grew up in Connecticut. My dad was in the Navy. And, so I grew up what they call a Navy brat, and going to the sub base in Groton. And they had a little gym there at the sub base. So we'd go down there and play ball there. Mystic Community Center. I think it's the YMCA now. We'd be playing ball down there, working out. And luckily for me, growing up, healthy living, healthy lifestyle was sort of the default. Back then, it was actually cheaper to eat healthy. I grew up with a garden next to the house.
Well,
and, the sugar-coated cereals and all that stuff, we couldn't get that stuff because it was just like more expensive. Oatmeal and all organic foods were cheaper. So by default, we had to eat that way, and growing up with a lot of brothers, there was always dumbbells in the house. There was a heavy bag hanging in the garage. My brothers played sports. They played, basketball, football. So coming up in that kind of atmosphere, I didn't realize it, but it set the stage for me later on to be so involved in fitness. And back then, there wasn't a lot with computers, and there weren't cell phones, and the video games that they had, the graphics weren't that great. So you'd play it for maybe an hour or so, and then, you'd be outside for the rest of the day, outside running around playing and doing all that. And we lived in a good area for that, to where you could go outside and play in the woods. I don't know if kids play in the woods anymore, but we would go and play outside for hours.
I don't think they do. I think we have an epidemic of screen addictions going on, and I know in my house we've had to deal with that a little bit, but I think it's a different life now, with with screens and computers and all of that. But I think that you're not alone in that. From our generation, we're very similar, very very similar.
Yep, and luckily, growing up, my mom was very, by default, into a whole eat your vegetables, drink your water. You can't have dessert until you finish your dinner, and eating healthy was default, for me coming up, which I was very lucky in that regard. But when I was a kid, being told to eat the Brussels sprouts and the okra, what I'm saying? It was like, oh man, because, it didn't taste that good, to me as a kid, but, you had to eat it, and I see a lot of kids have a lot of choices. I see kids that have the family's eating dinner and the kids got a hot dog or something and everybody else is eating the adult food, and we didn't get that luxury. We had to eat what everybody was eating. So living that healthy lifestyle has always been sort of a default to mine, so helping out other people live in this healthy lifestyle is not a big stretch for me. And in high school, played basketball, ran track. The basketball coach was also the tennis coach, and he wanted me to play tennis. And I just didn't want to bother with tennis. So basketball, track, cross country. And that's how I got started in fitness, really was sports, high school sports, running track and everything. And part of that was I didn't really want to just sit at home, so it was either if I didn't play a sport, I would have to go home after school and just hang out there. So I was like, nah, I'm going to play a sport. And I was tall too. I was about 6'1", 6'2" in junior high. So of course you had to play basketball if you're that tall in the school. They weren't going to let you get away with it, so that's how I got started,
Right on. So now you went to college, right? And then you went out. How did you get into acting? And you've appeared in a pretty big movie, actually.
Yeah, man. So it's funny that you bring that up, because what happened was, junior high, high school, didn't do anything with acting, drama club, none of that, man. I was like a really painfully shy kid, didn't do a lot of talking in school, nothing. And so I'm at Southern Connecticut State University, and fast forward a little bit, and I'm on the track team. And one day after track practice, I took a little detour to get back to the dorm. I ended up walking by the auditorium, and there was a lady standing out on the steps with a book in her hand. And she said to me, she waved me down. She said, "Hey, can you help me out and read something out of this book? One of the actors didn't show up." And I looked at her and I said, "I don't think you want me." I said, "I can read, but I can't act or anything. I don't think I'm the guy you want." She goes, "Oh no, come on in." She goes, "All you got to do is stand there and just read out of the book until he gets here."
Do you know how many times I've heard that? Something like that, like some happenstance thing that somebody just happens onto something like that. I think, Dennis, you've had many instances like that from what our conversations.
Yeah, the opportunity's open. And hey, something just came up in this. Southern Connecticut State University. We just had a guest here from Southern Connecticut State University, Parrish Smith. Were you there at the same time?
I was.
Right over there.
I was there at the same time, and it was right around, I came in as they were leaving, as they were graduating. But I do remember them being there and seeing them there and people talking about them on campus. And this is when they were right in that cusp of blowing up, and back then, when I say blowing up, hip hop was still, it's not what it is today. It's not as mainstream. You didn't see the videos on MTV all the time. Stuff wasn't played on the radio like it is. Back then, you had to listen to it on a college radio station or something. But in the hip hop world, EP&D was huge, man. I was just talking to my little brother about them just the other day. They had some revolutionary, groundbreaking videos. The "You Got to Chill" video with them inside the freezer.
Unbelievable. But that you were there and you got to experience that vibe of them blowing up, and you were there. That must have been a really cool time.
Yeah, it was, man. It was really cool. And I remember, if I remember correctly, there was like it was either an IROC Z or a Trans Am or something that one of them had.
The IROC.
The IROC, yeah. We talked about that, actually.
Yeah, that was such good times. And I remember when they had their videos, they would have to sometimes wear the Southern Connecticut shirt in the video. it was such a good time. Hip hop was such a big part of my life, at that time, because back then it was just coming out. So imagine, being a kid and hearing this new art form come out, right? 'Cause my brothers had all the vinyl, Sugar Hill Gang, Curtis Blow, Spoonie G, all the old school hip hop, and I grew up listening to all that vinyl. Not only that, my parents had all the old James Brown vinyls. So I remember hearing the James Brown samples in the hip hop. And I'm like, oh, wow, they're using all this old music. And it was just, they were just sampling it back then. And it was really cool to see because it was true art at that time. They were so creative. And all the hip hop sounded different back then. Every group had a distinct sound. EPMD sounded like EPMD. You had the Fat Boys, Curtis Blow, Run DMC, and they all had different sounds they were bringing to the table. It was really cool time.
Well, it's interesting because back then, it was considered a fad. Didn't know if hip hop would really be around. And actually just had the 50th anniversary last year. Who would have thought 50 years later would be the number one musical genre?
Isn't that crazy? And as soon as you said that, the first thing I thought of was the Notorious B.I.G. lyric. Remember rapping Duke, da-ha. Who would have thought hip hop would have made it this far? I mean, and I remember the adults at the time, because hip hop and breakdancing were side by side. And I remember a lot of the adults at the time were saying, when the breakdancing fad goes away, well, the hip hop's going to go with it. That's what a lot of them thought. And they're both still here. It was one of those art forms that was needed. I mean, you remember Grandmaster Flash, The Message.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of voices that just weren't being heard. And I'm so thankful that the art form has made it as far as it has, because it was a big part of my life, shaped my childhood, my adulthood, everything. And it's evolved. It's evolved now. And I'm not one of these people that says, well, the new stuff is no good and all that. I think it's all good. It's evolved. It's just different, That's all.
Yeah, that mirrors my childhood. My mother was Motown. We transitioned into hip hop, and just same thing. We always had the 8 tracks going in the household. It was a great way to grow up.
Yeah, and I remember MTV, watching MTV and wanting to see some of these videos, because back then you didn't know what people looked like. Now there's social media, so somebody had for breakfast 5 minutes ago, one of your favorite celebrities or whatever. Back then, you'd hear the music, but sometimes it'll take a year or two before you actually knew what the person actually looked like, because the albums weren't always readily available. You go to a record store and they're like, oh, I don't have that. You got to go to New York to get that. And MTV back then, they weren't playing any hip hop at the time. Then finally, Yo MTV Raps came along, and I think one of the first black artists they played was Michael Jackson, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right. Jeremy, what's interesting? This will hit home for you. 10 o'clock Friday nights, Connecticut College had a radio station, and they would play hip hop once a week for an hour from 10 to 11. That's the only exposure you had. And you took your cassette and you lined it up and tried to tape the new music out. That's the only exposure. So, like you said, it was 100% foreign.
Yeah, it was.
Any of this music was there.
That DJ's name. Yeah, there's a guy called Dr. Nine.
Yeah,
DJ. I don't know if you remember Dr. Nine.
I sure do. Yep. Yep.
So I think about him once in a while and wonder if he's still around or what he's doing. But he was the guy who introduced us to a lot of hip hop. He was at UConn. Skin Boys.
Yep.
They were Connecticut hip hop artists. I heard them. That was effects I heard on Dr. Nine station at WCNI. I think was in New London, and that was like that was Connecticut College, and they had a little hip hop too. But back then, the college radio stations were where you got, and there was another one called WBRI in Rhode Island. Saturday mornings they played hip hop too, so you had to really hunt and find it. Go to the record stores, and if you were lucky, you could get someone to take you down to New York, and and then you could get the vinyls and all that. But you had to go to the city to get it. Hip hop was very regional back then, very regional. And you go to New York and you grab your 12 inches. You couldn't wait to get home to hear them.
Delancey Street.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yep. Those are fun times. And now it's a little bit different because, it's everything's on social media now, so you can get it right away. But there was a cool aspect to everything being a little bit scarce. You get to go to the record store and they say, oh, you know what? We only got 5 copies of that. And we sold them all. And so you had to find someone who had it and see if they could copy the tape for you or something,
Yep. Click of the button today, you get whatever you want.
Yeah, do you remember DJ Red Alert?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I used to listen to him in Connecticut. If the stars were aligned just right, you could get that signal from New York. And so a lot of the early hip hop that I heard came through DJ Red Alert, DJ Chuck Chillout, and also Mr. Magic at WBLS. We'd be able to get a lot of that.
Those are pioneers in ushering hip hop in that should be getting their due through as we pay homage to the 50 years of hip hop, because they put it on the map for all of us and they got it out. They're the ones that pushed it out there.
Yeah, and hip hop culture shaped everything. I mean, if you look at fashion, pop culture, everything that I've seen evolve out of hip hop. I look now and I look at all the things I see around me. This is a lot of the stuff was born out of that hip hop culture. It's really cool to see all this just evolve to where it is now. It's a really, really cool thing. I'm glad I was, a part of the whole upbringing of it. I thought I was going to be a DJ. There was a store called Radio Shack. I don't think they're around anymore. And they would have all the mixing boards and all that. And I remember buying one of the little reverb boxes and stuff. And that's one of the things I wanted to do. But at the time, it wasn't even much of a possibility. I remember telling my parents that, and they were like, man, you better go to school, because there wasn't really a path for it was still experimental. And even the artists back then, I don't think they were making a ton of money. I think they were doing it out of love for the craft. So that wasn't happening for me.
Yeah, Jeremy, what's interesting, so acting, you talked about acting in Amistad, that hits home. That was made in our backyard, right?
Right in the backyard, man. And so what happened with that was, like I said, I got into a little bit of theater at Southern by accident. And when I graduated, I was like, wow, okay, I really like this acting thing. And I would have never known that I liked it had that professor not asked me to do that one play. It was an August Wilson play called Joe Turner's Come and Gone. And the irony is the character I played, the name was Jeremy in that play. And so I graduated, started doing community theater, doing a lot of stage stuff. And one day I was laying at home and my brother Rand was looking at the newspaper. And again, a lot of young people watching this, what's a newspaper? He was looking at the newspaper.
Right.
There's a little ad in there that said, looking for actors for a movie in Rhode Island, in Newport. He said, hey man, you should go down and try out for this thing. So I got up, drove down to Rhode Island, get to Newport, and there was a casting director there, a few of them in this room. And when I got there, they all looked at me and they said, hey, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And I don't know what they were talking about because I didn't even know what the movie was. And the lady goes, he might be good to play one of the main characters because the ad was just for extras. And they come back in the room. They're looking. They, I guess, sent my picture somewhere else. And long story short, I ended up in the film. The film's called Amistad. It was a Steven Spielberg film. And filmed it right there in Newport, Rhode Island, a lot in Mystic. And that was kind of my first time being on like a film set, like a real legit film set. Matt McConaughey was on the come up. Morgan Freeman was in the movie. Debbie Allen was there every day. And obviously Steven Spielberg was there. And everybody was just so down to earth, so cool. It was such an easy process. It was actually one of the best times of my life. And that's where I got my union status because, to be out here, you got to be the whole SAG status came through that. And it was a great time. And then the whole cast came to my mom's house in Mystic because one day I was on the set and I just asked Debbie Allen, I said, hey, would you guys want to come by for dinner? I said, I live not too far from here. And she's like, oh, are you kidding me? Yeah, sure. So they all came over and it was such a cool time. And that's how I got into the whole SAG and getting into doing films and wanted to do more of it. And, being in Connecticut, there wasn't a lot. So I had to go in and out of New York a lot, and I had to work too, so between working and getting into the city on the train, auditioning, and, there's a lot of people trying to do the same work. So I said, let me get out of Connecticut and come on out to California, and maybe there's a little bit more opportunity here. And that's how I landed out here in California, man, in Southern California, and got myself an agent, started auditioning, and ended up getting some things. I was in Shameless, Days of Our Lives, did an episode there, did a few movies here, and did a lot of commercial work, a lot of voiceover work. And industry is a grind, as they say. It's a tough industry. It's a grind because there's a lot of people who are pursuing the same path, but it's been awesome just to be a part of it and to be pursuing your dream every day and going for it is partly the success in and of itself, because a lot of people never even get to that point where they get in that driver's seat and punch the gas and go for it, and being from, the small town, that's pretty much what it was like. Everybody was, let's just stay here and play it safe. And it took a lot for me to break out of there. And I'm sure you can relate to that.
It's interesting. I think like your first movie, it's not like you were in a little mom and pop movie. You were in Steven Spielberg's movie to start. And Morgan Freeman, McConaughey, those are three of the biggest actors that we've had in our lifetime.
Yeah. Did
that inspire you to keep going, to be in their presence and picking things up from them?
Yeah, it did, man. And what's crazy about that is when I got to the set, I didn't really know what to expect because, they're celebrities. Morgan Freeman was he was a really, really big name. He still is. And I remember the first day I met him on the set, he was just really cool, really down to earth. And I was like, okay, I can do this, because they didn't have this air about them where they treated you any different. And Matt McConaughey invited me into his trailer because I don't know if he still does, but back then he used to travel around in an RV. He didn't really do a lot. He just go to all the sets and stuff in RVs, all the movies. And he invited me into his RV. We sat and talked for quite a while and had a good conversation. And it was just had a time of my life on that set. And that did inspire me quite a bit, being part of that. And I got to meet Steven Spielberg as well, Debbie Allen and everything. So it was really cool.
Amazing. So how long did you do acting in total? And do you still do any?
Before that movie, or you mean during the filming of the movie?
No, from from that time till now.
Oh, okay. So that would be, I'd say 19 up to now.
Wow, cool. So you're still working.
Still going at it, man. I'm still,
nice.
Auditioning. And it's pretty crazy because what people don't realize is that even the actors that you see in movies and shows and a lot of them still audition. A lot of them still go to class and still work at this. It's not really easy for any of us to just get these roles, unless you're one of the 1%, you're the big name.
Yeah. How has the industry changed a lot? I mean, there was this writer strike this past year, and since the pandemic, how has it changed since then?
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. So it used to be that you'd go in and do a lot of auditions in person. So I used to like that. You'd go into a room, shake hands, and do your scene. Now everything's what's called self-tape. So you get your script and you record the audition and then you send it in. So everything's pre-recorded and they just watch all the tapes. That's a big change for me that I don't like as much because I like being able to get into the room, shake hands, talk to people, and let them kind of get a feel for my personality and create a rapport and a relationship. But when you're sending in a little snippet of a tape, you can't really make that connection. So that's That's been a really difficult one for me. And since the strike happened, it's been a little bit tough in terms of getting the auditions. The auditions and things haven't quite picked back up yet the way I thought they would. I thought after the strike was over, there was going to be this huge avalanche of work, but things have kind of bottlenecked a little bit. It's been a little bit slow actually, because they had a lot of things I think that were still being produced and worked on prior to the strike. So they had to get back and get a lot of that stuff finished up. A lot of the shows that people watch and everything they're just now getting back to getting them filmed. So I'm hoping at the end of the year things will pick back up again and get really busy.
Yeah. So, what made you decide to? Now we're going to get into like your fitness journey, because this is kind of near and dear to my heart. Over the past 4 years, I've gone through a physical transformation where I lost 200 pounds. And
congratulations, man! It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Went from a 64-inch waist down to a 34, and still got some cleanup work to do. But I'm in there every day. Just got finished this morning doing my run. I think Dennis has done a double this morning.
Yeah, bright and early, 5:30, up and at it. I get up.
Wow, that's amazing.
4:30 every morning. Wife and I get up, and we're usually have both of our workouts down back to back, and honestly, the day feels so much better when you get it done.
You get in early, the day's much better. 4:30, that's early.
Jeremy, I got to tell you something. So, wife went through all your clips, and she was using those little reminders that you were saying, and about that last rep. What's that line?
Yes.
You got to make sure it's hard to do, right?
Yeah. The whole thing behind that was, when anything you're doing, I tell everybody this, that doesn't just apply to the gym. That applies to anything that you're doing. Go ahead and give it your best effort. Anything that you're doing, don't just go through the motions. So if you're working out and you have a weight in your hand and you get to where you're going to do a set and it's 10 reps, right? And you get to number 10 and number 10 is like this. That's not enough. That's not enough effort. That last one should be barely get it finished, because now you've trained the muscle. The muscle's going to have to recruit more fiber into that movement. The body has to change. The bone density has to have an uptick. Your tendon strength is there. And not only that, you have a sense of accomplishment that you've pushed past your limit. So when I always say make the last rep hard to do, it applies in the gym, but take that out of the gym and do that with everything. Put the effort in. And when you put in the more effort you put in, the more results you get. And I do it with all the clients I train too.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I think is a really hard thing to get over to people who haven't really trained before. Understanding that you what the rep range and what you're supposed to be feeling throughout the entire thing, I think is really important, and it's a really easy way to get that message across, which is great.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly, and that's because when I'm training people, I train a lot of people in person. That's the bulk of my clients are all in person, the majority. And a lot of people, the question you get all the time with the trainer is, how many reps are we doing? That's always the question, is how many reps are we going to be doing here, And before we even start the exercise, that's what most people want to know. And just the other day, I told somebody, I said, she said, how many reps are we going to do this exercise? And I said to her, let's find out. I said, let's find out. Let's see. Because a lot of times if you tell somebody 8 reps, right at rep number 6, up here, they might be thinking, well, I only got 2 more to do. And they may stop whether they could do more or not,
Yep.
So a lot of times I'm like, let's just get the weight in your hand and let's push a little bit and see what we can get out of this. Let's push and see where we can go with this, because you can do more than you think you can. You can always do more than you think you can. And to get your body to change and to build muscle and as you know, to make that transformation, takes some effort. It takes some effort
and time, and time,
and time,
both.
And we're not doing anything to be average. We want to be a little bit better than average. Did you get better with each rep? each set, each workout? Are you improving? Are you getting better? And making that last rep hard to do, that's a good gauge for anybody and anything that you're doing, whether you're studying in school, working out, running, lifting weights. Push it and see what you can get. You'd be surprised the results you'll get from that. And that's something I live by, and it's something that I train my clients with. And it's something that they all have received a lot of great results from, is pushing themselves to their limits. That's basically what it comes down to, is pushing yourself to your limit.
Yeah. So how did you go from pivoting from an actor to doing personal training and a fitness influencer? I mean, you have a really big following on Instagram. I don't know, it's in the 100,000 range, something like that. Yeah.
On Instagram, and then on TikTok, I think it's seven followers, something like that.
Fantastic.
Incredible.
It's a really good question. So what happened was, as an actor, you're not always acting. You know, even some of the big names have times where you're not always doing something. And I like creating, and I like getting in front of the camera and doing stuff. So pandemic hit, and we had this lockdown going on. You know, so we're all in the house. We had a lockdown, and I needed something to do. So I said, you know what? Let me just start posting some videos. So I used to get in front of the camera, post some videos. I was posting some acting monologues and things like that. And got in front of the camera, started just doing some skits. And watch my content, you see the guy with the hat on, kind of the alter ego character. I was doing these skits, and I said, I kind of really like this because it allows me to act a little bit, because that's a character.
Yeah, for sure.
This cool guy is a character, so it allows me to act a little bit. And that's how that whole thing came about, was me wanting to utilize my acting talent and my sort of hunger to create and be an artist. And I said, well, let me combine all that and inspire and help people as well. And I truly just enjoy making the content. And I never really expected it to blow up or to take off. That was never, I know it sounds cliche, but it was never really my intention. I just figured if 20 people were watching, I'd be happy with that, because that means I'm helping 20 people. But it just so happens that it caught on a little bit, and a lot of people
like it.
Yeah, people are influenced by it. People like it. I get DMs from people all the time telling me that they are back in the gym working out because they watched the videos in the comments.
That feels good, I'm sure.
Saying that they started working out because they watched my videos. And to me, that's the biggest form of payment that I could ever ask for, is to have influenced somebody else in a positive way. Because online and on social media, there's a lot of negative stuff. You know, there's a lot of negative stuff, a lot of clickbait, and I think a lot of kids need some positive role modeling, and even adults too need something positive that you can look forward to and be motivated by. You know.
Jeremy, going back to something you said early, you know, we grew up in a time where you could get 10 guys to show up outside, play basketball when we were kids, play baseball, go in the woods, just play games.
Yeah.
Today it's very difficult to get, you know, some of our adolescents away from the video games in outside. Have you thought about that? You know, the dangers of that lack of movement and activity, and what can we do better as parents, as educators, as fitness instructors to get students or children out there immersed in being active?
Yeah, and you know, a good question. And part of that character was I wanted to appeal to a wide range of people on a little bit of an entertainment aspect and making people laugh. And consequently, a large part of my audience is sort of the adolescent, later teenage, and then get into the early 20 age range, because people nowadays need to be entertained a little bit, you know, in order to hook them, you know. And when you have that sort of appeal, I think it's easier for them to latch on to it because it's fun. And I think we have to find ways to make fitness, nutrition, education, and all that fun for kids to do, because we're competing with a lot of things now. We're competing with the video games. We're competing with social media. And I don't think it's that kids don't want to work out. I think that they need some sort of inspiration to get there. We need to role model it. We all need to be better role models. I've just talked about he had a big transformation, lost a ton of weight. You just had a transformation. That's something people can look at and latch onto as inspiration and as role models. And I think that with video games and with people streaming a lot of stuff, I think we're doing a lot more sitting than we ever have. And a lot of it's the food, the lack of movement, the mindset as well. So I try to combine all of that on my page to give people an outlet to learn a little bit about nutrition, positive mindset. I talk about that all the time, pushing through the tough times and just trying to provide that inspiration for that younger crowd.
All right, Jeremy. So you just went over a really nice way of putting it at your apex. And it sounds to me like you're still not quite there. And Dennis and I have found that most of the people we interview here, that's a very similar thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And pushing yourself further. What else can you do? Can you get a little bit better?
Right. I don't think you ever actually get there. So it's kind of this elusive thing. But people who are high performers always feel like they're a little bit behind all the time, and they always want to get a little bit better.
Right.
Could you leave the listener with an idea of what it is that you do and what you bring to the table on a regular basis, and let them know what the future holds for Jeremy Actor?
Yeah. So, on a daily basis, for me, it's about getting up as early as possible every day, starting the day with some positive affirmations, sort of setting the tone for your day, and starting the day with good nutrition. You got to give your body good fuel. Even when you go to the gas pump, they have different grades of gas, right? It's 89, 90, 91, 92, and treat your body like a high performance car, man. Give it the best fuel possible, give it the best fuel possible so you can get through your day in the best way possible. And I always say to people, do the best you can with whatever you have, wherever you are, because we're all not able to sometimes do the exact thing that we want to do. So just always do the best you can. Eating healthy for me might be different for someone who can't afford certain things. So, but always just do your best every day for yourself. Try to get a little bit of movement in every day. Always tell people, if you can't get to a gym, go outside and just go for a quick walk. Go down to the end of the sidewalk, come back a few times. Try to get a little bit of resistance training in if you can. You can do some push-ups, some body weight squats, anything you can do to keep your body strong. And I always tell people that you're training for something, right? You don't always know what it is. If you look at a professional athlete, I'm sure you guys watched the NCAA, the Final Four, you watched all that. They're all training for that moment to get on that court, right? I tell people all the time, train as intently as they do for your life, because
that's right.
We're all training for something. You're training for something, and the big game that you could be training for, it might be something as simple as so you can be strong enough to help somebody else with something. Or if it's someone who maybe trips and falls and you don't get hurt, you can get back up off the floor. You were training for that. But
we just had that. Yeah, we just had that. I actually ended up with a pretty bad knee injury, and I was rolling around on the floor, and I said, you know what, thank God I wasn't 400 pounds or plus, and I was rolling around, whining, saying this is how old people die, So you're so right, Jeremy. I appreciate that you said that. And one of my new whys is that, I want to become resistant to becoming dead, so that's kind of my big why, right?
Yeah.
So with that, where can everyone find you? I mean, I know you're on Instagram. I follow you there, and you said you're on TikTok. And why don't you give us a little bit of a plug of where they can follow you?
Yeah, awesome. So my website's called thejeremyeffect.com. You can find me there. If you can't train with me in person and you want a virtual program, or you want me to just program something for you, I can do that for you. And on Instagram, the Instagram handle is Jeremy Actor. And on TikTok, the account is called Jeremy the Hulk. And on
I
Facebook,
like that.
Fitness with Jeremy. And the funny thing about the Jeremy the Hulk thing is I was literally in the gym, and this kid walked up to me and said, "Hey, man, you should be on TikTok." This was several years ago. And I said, "I didn't even know what it was." He said, "I'll show you how to download it right now." So he showed me how to download it onto the phone. And then it says, "Hey, it's asking for a username." I said, "What should I put here?" He goes, "I just put in Jeremy the Hulk." So I put it in there, and it's stuck ever since. But all this stuff has kind of been really cool, and just kind of enjoying the ride, and I'm glad I'm able to influence people and help people out. That's my main objective, is to how many people can I help, and how much muscle can I help people build and make people stronger, not just physically, but just mentally, right?
Yeah.
We all need the armor, because it's a tough world out here. And I think that the lifting and fitness will help you to just be stronger and be able to endure more, right? Because we're going to have things coming at us. That's a given. But how much can we endure is the question.
Yep. I gotcha. Well, thank you so much for coming and testing out this equipment with us today, and a little bit of technical difficulties, but we'll get through the editing phase just fine, I'm sure. Dennis, any closing thoughts?
Jeremy, it's great to circle back with you. You're always one of the great guys. Had a lot of great times playing ball. And we had really good times. But you know what? Seeing you live your best life, helping others live their best life, and I know myself, I learned many valuable lessons from you today that I can apply to my own life, and sure other people are doing it. So you keep being you and doing your thing, and I'm along for the journey, and great connecting again.
I appreciate it, and congratulations to you guys on your platform, and you guys are getting some good growth, and you got a great thing going, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. So thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It was really great to actually meet you virtually here, and I've been following you for a long time. Go follow Jeremy Actor on Instagram and all the other places, Jeremy Effect. If you like what you saw here today, please go ahead and hit subscribe and hit the notification bell. That'd be great. And if you put, in the comments, subscribed, we're going to enter you in for a free gift. And we'll tell you more about that later. But on every one, subscribe and then hit subscribe on the bottom, and you're going to end up entering for a free gift. So with that, Dennis, what do you think? Do you think it's about that time?
It's go time.
It is go time. It's usually go time at the end of the thing. And Jeremy, thank you again so much. I appreciate everything that you do, and keep on it. Yeah, go.
When you feel what you're going through, you got to make sure that last rep is hard to do.
Nice. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy.